Number 25. On St. Patrick's Day, everyone is Irish, just like the Olive Garden is Italian. Number 26. A crew neck fleece pullover? I call it a sweatshirt. I know that guy, so. But thanks anyway. Okay, I'll do one more. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and hanging around. I'd like to thank Dr. John Bennett, Elisa Phillips, and Emily Glemm for their participation. I do have a book, and it is for sale if you're interested. I have some with me if you want to. I'd be glad to sign a copy. John also has books. Elisa has a book, so if you're interested, ask them. I'd like to do something for myself a little bit here. My father passed away 15 years ago next week. So I'd like to read a story I wrote about him. And thanks again. This is called Remembering Snook. My dad's nickname was Snook. He got it from one or more of his many brothers and sisters who numbered 10 or 11. I forget. I had an Uncle Skeek. I had an Uncle Mooney. Snook's real name was Richard, like mine, and he went by Dick almost always. Yet my cousins always called him Uncle Snooky. He didn't much like the moniker, but it stuck like glue. I won't kid you, the guy was a real pain to live with. Demanding, boisterous, your typical blue-collar father. But he was a good father. He came home after work every day. He was hard on us kids, but he loved us. He was hard on my mother, but he loved her. Yet even though he quit high school to join the Navy and go to war, he had a certain decency and wisdom and intuitiveness that I don't remember seeing in my friends' more mild-mannered fathers. He had this sense of humor. He would just start with the dumb jokes until he found one that finally made you laugh. Hey, you know Fat Burns? Just light a match to it. Ever hear of Phil Dirt? He's Sam Spade's brother-in-law. And then there was my personal favorite. He would say in a very deadpan voice, you know what burns my ass? Then he would thrust his hand out about waist high and yell, a fire about this high. It still cracks me up. And he would do these outrageous things no one else would have the nerve to do. Like when he heard a rumor that the owner of the shop he worked in was moving the shop to the state of Texas. Whenever the bosses would come around, he would start singing, the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Snook did this great imitation of the Pope. He would make the sign of the cross and chant, I can beat anybody in this house in dominoes. This too still cracks me up. And whenever we drove past the cemetery, he would say, hard to believe, but people are dying to get into that place. Religion was a good subject for him also. His philosophy, why he attended church regularly, you're dead a long time. I think that's funny and more honest than most churchgoers. For a while, me, my two brothers, and Snook were custodians at our church. What this means is that you do a lot of work, get paid very little, are appreciated even less, and learn that it's the lawyer who becomes the president of the congregation, not the janitor. Still, Snook made the best of the situation. I remember the whole family would be getting ready for church, invariably running late, and would see my father frantically brushing the shoulders of his sport coat while shouting downstairs at my poor mother, goddamn dog hair. And one time we had to get to church really early, way before the minister did. Why? Because Snook left his cigar on the altar. Fortunately, it had gone out before he put it there. And then there was a time he put the bowl from the baptismal font on his head and went into this routine like he was shooting a machine gun. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. One time I asked my dad if our ancestors came over on the Mayflower. He told me they did. And when I learned later on it wasn't true and confronted him about it, he said, There had to be a Brown in there somewhere, and what the hell difference does it make what boat we came over on? We got here, didn't we? That's the way he was. Seat of your pants, blue-collar truisms that sometimes contradicted each other, but it didn't matter. You can't make money by working, he'd say. It takes money to make money. Or you don't get nothing for nothing, which I believe is a triple negative, possibly quadruple. But true nonetheless. In domestic issues, it was either you can't have dogs and furniture, or you can't have kids and furniture, both of which we all know to be true. For a while, my father had a lawnmower repair shop in the garage out back, and I have fond memories of hanging out there watching him work and listening to baseball on a summer night. Tony D'Angelo from across the street would be banging away on a mower with a hammer, which seemed to be the only tool he knew how to use, and he worked because he worked in a junkyard. Those were good times. Snook had these signs in the shop. One read, Confucius say, no got the cash, no cut the grass. And Confucius say, no got the dough, no gonna mow. And my favorite, good tools cost money. Maybe mine aren't good, but put them back anyway. And how he loved to watch television. Ironically, it brought the family together because there was only one television, Snook's television. But we all sat around watching Gunsmoke and whatever Snook wanted to watch. These are some fond memories. Once after I had gone off to college, he and my mom were visiting at school when Snook told me, television ain't any good anymore, Ricky. And when I inquired why, he said, they ran out of plots. For this was the kind of guy he was. But the big thing I learned about him was tolerance. Yes, from this belligerent, frustrated man, I learned to be tolerant of others. Having served on a ship in the Navy during World War II, a subject he almost never spoke of. He was on a ship that went in after a battle, removed the dead, and helped repair the guns. He wasn't proud of this, and once he told me about a friend of his, a black man. In order for Snook to see his friend, he had to go to the back of the ship in the galley, because the cooks were black, and they had to be segregated in the galley, away from the white guys. Same Navy, same country. One time we were on vacation in South Carolina. He and I took the car to the garage because the exhaust was falling off. While the car was up on the rack, he introduced himself to a man of color there for much the same reason. The man's name was Red, and Snook said, imagine that, a white man named Brown and a black man named Red. And a year later, when I had a black friend from Akron, I had a black friend from Akron. I had met at a youth church function. Stay at our house. Snook insisted we all go to church together. And I remember people walking out. When I was 12, he bought me my first guitar. We looked at inexpensive guitars at first, but when he learned they were made in Japan, he bought me a Gibson from the good old USA. I ain't buying no Jap guitar, Ricky. Yet 7 or 8 years later, he bought a Mazda and proclaimed, them Japs make good cars. I guess he forgave them by then. Oh sure, I'm romanticizing a little here. I don't miss going out to change the oil in the car on the coldest night of the year after he waited until it was dark. Put the oil in, Rick. Does it go here, Dad? No. I want you to pour it all over the engine. Or when I was going on a date and he didn't like the girl, he'd say, don't do anything stupid. And I'd say, what do you mean? And Snook would yell, you know what I mean. Hey, I do not miss those times, funny as they seem now. After my mom died, Snook met a woman and remarried. She was nice enough, but she was a Southern Baptist. So Snook became a Southern Baptist. And believe me, he did not make a good one. At his funeral, there was this young minister, one that Snook always joked cared more about taking his money than saving his soul. And if I hadn't written a little biography about my father, I would not have known it was his funeral. So this young Baptist minister is up in front of Snook's casket, Bible in hand, arms flailing about, talking about hell and salvation. And I thought to myself, hey, preacher, you know what burns my ass? A fire about this high. And I swear I saw Snook smile.